Hey students, it is time for Life Group, and I just want to again say thank you for being part of this. I know, I know so many Sundays and so many weekends. You might have had that thought of, man, do I really want to jump on another Zoom call? Man, do I really want to do this? And so many times you have. And so I want to say thank you. This is the last Sunday for Life Groups. The way they look now. As school starts back every year, we move every group up, and so if you're a sixth grader starting Monday, you're not going to be viewed as a sixth grader anymore. You're going to be viewed as a seventh grader. We're going to be bringing in new sixth graders into the student ministry family, and we're excited about that. And so I know that this is the last time in Life Group, not the last time for the rest of your life, but the last time in Life Group. That you and your leaders can be together. So I know you're going to spend some time maybe talking about this past year and maybe some of your favorite things and some of the things that God has shown you. And you might still continue to be frustrated about COVID and just, that you'd rather be face-to-face. Trust me, I know your Life Group leaders want to be in the same room with you guys. And thank you for being flexible and understanding that that's just not always been possible. And it's not always going to be maybe the safest thing to do at certain times. And so you guys have been super flexible. You've met at different times. You've met at different places. You've looked at a screen and looked at people and met. And so just thank you for not giving up on being part of your Life Group. Because I believe even in the midst of this, God has done some remarkable things, has reminded us of some really important truths. And that's why a lot of, the past several weeks, we've just been, just walking through some books of the Bible. And so we're going to continue that today. We're going to continue and pick up where we were in Mark chapter 6. We're going to finish it off and then look at part of Mark chapter 7. And in doing so, we're going to see kind of three events that happened and then a conversation after those events that Jesus has with the Pharisees. But we really need to look at the events before we get to the conversation. So let's do that. In the first part of our passage today, Mark chapter 6, we're going to be looking at a very well-known event where Jesus fed 5,000 people. And if we look at the scripture, it says it's 5,000 men. And so people believe that it wasn't just men there, but to kind of do the head count, they're like, well, there's 5,000 men there. So it's easy for us to believe that it was maybe even way more than that if there were women and children. But we know there were at least 5,000 men that were fed that day. And so this is a well-known story, where the disciples say, hey, Jesus, these people are hungry. We've got no food to feed them. And Jesus is like, what do we got? What's around? And they find a little boy who has 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Now, I don't know about you, but 5 loaves of bread doesn't go that far. And even if you got 2 really big fish, they got to be really big fish to feed 5,000 or more people. And the other piece is at the end of this event, there's food left over. There's more food left over than they began with. But I was reminded this week, there was more food that they had at the beginning, but how much food had to be, and watch this, how much food had to be created to feed 5,000 or more people so that there was that much left over, more than they had to begin with. What's unique about this miracle that Jesus did, this isn't the miracle of sharing, this isn't the miracle of, food rationing. It's not that at all. It is, and we know that because he had more than they had to begin with. They had more at the end than they had to begin with. So it wasn't a rationing thing where everybody got like a little teensy bit. That couldn't be true. You would at least have something less than what you started with. So more food had to come from somewhere. And the reality is Jesus created it. And I know that may sound hard to believe, but there is no other option. They didn't go fishing. They didn't, have a bakery. Jesus made more. And in this miracle, he displayed that he is God. He created. And what's an interesting thing, this miracle is recorded in all 4 Gospels. You've got the 4 authors of the gospel. You got Matthew, you got Mark, you got Luke, you got John, and they're writing their accounts of the life and ministry of Jesus. And there's going to be a lot of similarities and a lot of miracles. You might be in a couple of the Gospels or 3 of the Gospels, and all of them have the crucifixion of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus. but this is the only miracle that all four have included in their gospel. And what's interesting, if you look in John, at the very end of that passage in John, the people were amazed, and they were so amazed, they were like, we've got to make this guy king. And so they started to kind of rush Jesus, and Jesus was like, this is not how it needs to go down, so we need to leave. But in this section of the passage that we're looking at today, Jesus clearly displayed that he is God, because he created more fish and more bread, enough to feed at least 5,000 men. That's a lot of food. That is a lot of food. But then there's another thing that happens right after that. Again, the people kind of crowd Jesus, and Jesus is like, hey, like, we need to keep moving on, and we need to go to the other side of the lake. And as they're going to the other side of the lake, the crowd kind of beats them there, and Jesus sends his disciples. He's like, you guys head on out, and I'm going to catch up with you. I'm actually going to catch some time with the Father. And again, what we see next is a pretty well-known account, and this was where Jesus walks on water. And I don't know about you, like, man, I've learned to swim and things like that. I can float on my back or float on my stomach. But I did something the other day for the very first time. I tried paddleboarding, and I know some of you have paddleboarded. Some of you might even own paddleboards. The stand-up paddleboards, and you're like, it's really not that hard. I was doing this on the lake. I was doing this on Percy Priest, and the water's kind of choppy. And again, I've never done it, so I know there's balance, and I know you got to stand certain parts of the board, but it was not easy by any means. However, though, for those of you who are wondering, you're like, this guy couldn't do it. I did it. I was able to paddle around, and you got to have a long paddle if you're my size. And so I was standing up, I was paddling, and I learned that momentum is pretty key. If you kind of stand there and you got a little bit of waves, it's a little bit harder. So I kept trying to have some momentum and just keep paddling, and it was fun. And it was not as easy as I thought it was going to be, but it was a lot of fun. But you know what I'm reminded? I'm standing on something that can float. And it was very difficult at first. There's a moment where you got to get your balance and stand up. And again, if you're as tall as me, standing up takes a little bit more time. And so I'm standing on something that can float on the water. And if I do it wrong, then I'll fall, I'll sink, and I certainly won't float. And as much as that paddleboard is designed to float, I can do something that will sink it. I'm saying that because you and I cannot walk on water. If you had a string of paddleboards, maybe tied together, maybe you could, but it would be very difficult. It'd be wobbly. And again, as your body's pushing down on the water, that paddleboard is going to kind of move. It's like walking on a waterbed or something like that. However, we have Jesus, who is just going for a stroll, walking on water. And it's not shallow, and he's walking on the ocean floor or the lake floor. He's walking on the water. And so a couple things are happening. It's freaking the disciples out, because the storm is kicked up again on the lake, and then they see this guy walking on water. And I don't know about you, even if I know somebody pretty well, if I see them do something like that, I'm going to get a little freaked out. And so, we have that happen. And again, that's a reminder that Jesus is in control. He has authority over creation. Well, who has authority over creation? God. And so this is yet another, just in case you guys were curious, in case you didn't know who I was, my name is Jesus, and I'm God with skin on. I'm God in the flesh. And so that's another reminder that Jesus is God. Well, then there's a third thing that happens. They get to dry land after he's walked on water and calmed the storm again. He's walking around, and there's people that are rushing him, and they're sick and they need healing. And they all believe, much like that lady that just touched his garment, they believe, man, if I just touch his clothes, his cloak, man, I'll be healed. And so we see that again. Well, who can heal sickness? You might say, hey, doctors with medicine. Fair enough. But that's the beauty of this. They just touched Jesus' clothes, and they were healed. And so again, who can do that? God. So you have these three events that happen where Jesus is displaying that he is God. He has authority over creation. He has authority over the things of this world, the storm, the water, things that have been created. He has authority over illness. But now let's move to the conversation with Jesus and the Pharisees. You have those things happen, And the Pharisees are like, hey, Jesus, can you tell us a quick question? This is the beginning of Mark 7. Hey, can you answer this for us? Hey, how come the disciples don't wash their hands before you guys eat? Now, I love that question. Imagine that you have a chance to meet your favorite celebrity. Okay. Imagine that you have a chance to meet somebody that is super famous, has done amazing things, maybe even some like crazy wild things like Elon Musk. And you're like, okay, bro, let's talk Tesla. Let's talk SpaceX. Let's talk just, all the maybe amazing stuff you've done. You're crazy rich. You want to talk to Jeff Bezos. Like, okay, talk to me about how you started Amazon. Like, you've got so many different ways to go to start that conversation. Favorite, movie star, favorite athlete, favorite musician. You've got so many categories of questions that you should ask before you go to something really petty, weird, and like not even essential to the conversation. Well, that's what the Pharisees did. Hey, we know you just fed 5,000 people with like a really small Lunchable, and we know you just walked on water and told a storm to be quiet, and we know you healed people when they touched your clothes, but can you tell us why you didn't wash up for dinner correctly? That doesn't make any sense, right? Again, remember the Pharisees are a little blind to who Jesus is because he's not jiving with the system they've set up. And so Jesus calls him out on that. He said, look, you're asking a question about one of your own traditions and not God's word. And that he called him a hypocrite, basically. And so Jesus then goes into an unbelievably important topic. And that's where I'm going to leave you for you guys to spend some time in Life Group, because that very end of that part of Mark chapter 7, verses 14 through 23 is an incredibly, incredibly important part of the gospel. In fact, it is the gospel, that it is the gospel teaching about you and me. It's the truth about who you and I are as sinners. And so I'm going to leave you with that and give you guys that opportunity to jump right in. And so I'm excited for this last go round in Life Group. And as I say that, I want to be real quick to remind you, next Sunday, August 9th at Charlie Daniels Park from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., we're going to have a chance to see each other face to face. We're going to have a chance to say hello to our new sixth graders that are coming into the family. We're going to have a chance to say, hello, and it's good to see you to some of us that we haven't seen in several months. And so I want to invite you out just to be a part of that. We're going to have fun. If you can't stay the whole 2 hours, hey, still come. It'll be good for us to see you, and it'll be good for you to see us. And so hope to see you there. Have a great Life Group, and we will see you at the park on Sunday.